SVS just released 2 subwoofers that are going to revolutionize home audio, plus what's in my current hi-fi system. But first, let's get to the new SVS, the SB-5000 and the PB-5000. I'm super excited about these. I couldn't wait to talk about them. You know, they've been releasing new subwoofers this year, which is a big thing for SVS. They released the 17-Ultra, and now they just released the 5000 series, which is reference level, but they released it into their normal line, which is something just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm like putting that together now. Yeah, I see what they're doing with the 5000. That's smart.
Yeah, like the trickle-down technology from the 17, they're putting into their main line, I guess we'll call it. I don't know what term that they use. But hey, if you do have questions about subwoofers and hi-fi in general, building a hi-fi system, hey, this video is sponsored by All Elite Audio, which is our company. So we want to help you. Tom, you're just sitting there laughing at how we did that, right?
No, it's good.
Oh, cool. We want to help you guys build your next hi-fi system, so you can actually call and text us and get advice direct from us on how to build that system. We'll build the system for you. Go to alleliteaudio.com or text and call us, and we'll help you build your next hi-fi system. But man, the SB and the PB, they're 2 completely kind of different models, right? And the main difference in the 2, just to start off with that, is that one is ported and one is sealed.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get into that debate. That might be a good debate to start with.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, in theory, I would assume, and I could be wrong, and I'd love to hear in the comments what everybody thinks of this in this little debate, ported versus unported. You know, I would assume that the ported might be better for home theater and the sealed might be better for hi-fi. But am I wrong?
That is kind of the general sentiment. I mean, there are, you know, with your sealed subs, you get a little bit more of a realism in the instrumentation, like your bass guitars and stuff. That's kind of the idea. I shouldn't say idea. I think that is generally the case. You know, I do kind of want to preface this with the way SVS kind of designs everything. I mean, they don't believe any of this. This debate, you know, it's kind of just one or the other, and whatever kind of you favor is the one you go with. But yes,
interesting.
The ported subs, they get deeper, and they're kind of a little bit more natural in the room. To me, I mean, they can also get a little subbier. You know, you get a little bit more, which can be fun for home theater and might be too much for music, but it just kind of depends, man. You know, I'm a total bass head. So
and I'm not.
Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of the thing. You have like your reinforcement of the speakers versus, you know, really giving you the bass.
And it's not just about being like a bass head. Like there's a lot of frequencies that your speakers might not be able to pick up that the subwoofers can. Right. So there's 7 big main features on the new 5000 series subs that we're going to cover. The new driver, we're going to cover the new voice coils, the dual mono amplifier. We're going to cover the power supply, which is really actually cool. We have a story about the power supply when we were listening to the 16s out in Ohio.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we can attest.
Mention that setup.
Yeah, we got to attest to why this is so cool to have like a power, you know, switch in the subwoofer. I will talk a little bit about the DSP and the app, and then the, you know, the cabinet design, which we're already kind of touching on, but they're like the 7 kind of highlights that I think we really need to touch on. But I do find it's interesting that instead of just being like, this is just taking the place of the 16, which it kind of did, and putting it in the reference line, they made a big deal about making that reference product for the main line, which is just, it's interesting. It's like they're going to take their main line to another level to really reach like a reference. And look, let's face it, SVS is one of the big leaders in subs in the market. Very cool stuff. I actually want to start with the dual mono amplifier design.
Okay.
I'd love to just go down the list like I said it, but you know, That's not what I want to do, because I got kind of, this is kind of exciting. So instead of just putting one amp in a subwoofer, they didn't do that at all.
Mm-mm.
So
it's a dual coil, and they have a separate amp for each coil.
correct.
Okay.
Right.
Well, you know, anytime you got separate amps, I mean, and you're having more power like that, it's all just about driving that driver properly, not just as much as you can, but have it be as accurate as possible. Or I don't know, what's the good word for
Precise.
yeah. Yeah, I guess
mean,
a
accurate,
lot of things can go
precise.
wrong in subwoofers, and there's a lot they go through great lengths to really make sure that through all the frequencies, the dynamics, and the volumes, things stay somewhat consistent. You don't have weird hiccups that kind of happen.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of cool how they're driving this. Like, it sounds like maybe a complicated way of doing it, but it really controls, that bass driver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, control is a good word.
Okay, there we go. See, I knew
that's
I could
what I'm
do
searching
this.
for.
The guy that doesn't use subs all the time, but I know how they can really incorporate into the system, and it makes a lot of sense from the point of getting those frequencies that might pick up things in the music that you don't listen to, that you don't hear in just your speakers. So
yeah, I mean, even speakers that go down, I mean, a lot of it's somewhere between 50 is kind of high, but a lot of them are in the 40 range. We hear down to 20 hertz as babies. Well, I guess babies, it's more you lose that high frequency, so I guess we can all still hear 20 hertz, right? But that is the limit, and these SVS, it'll go a few
17
hertz. Yeah, and it's hertz are exponential, so the difference between 15 and 20 is a lot bigger than 8,000 and 8,005.
I mean, that's really low.
It is very low. Yeah,
I mean,
get very deep.
It'll get deep. It'll pick out a lot of the notes that you won't hear in other stuff, and then it's a lot of power.
Also, though, man, it's just like if there are so like I love like the conservative like reinforcement of your speakers, and these can definitely do that. But if I like we were just going to all these shows this year, and these big systems, and if I'm listening to a system and like the bass drops or like a bunch of bass comes in and it doesn't just like it's not like bass, I get a little disappointed.
Well, that's one of the factors with having a subwoofer in the system, right? Because I always tell people when they want to add a subwoofer, I personally don't put it in front of me in the view, right? So, I'll put the subwoofer, and we'll talk about why maybe it's better to have two subwoofers or four in some cases. But I like to not see it because I feel that when you look at it, you expect more all the time.
Yeah.
Right. So you start to judge it. You're like, is it giving enough bass? Is it, and I think, with people who aren't maybe audiophiles and they just want to, add a lot of bass, this is a big thing for them. Where, you just see it. Maybe it's just picking up like the lower frequencies and adding stuff to the music, or, it's a little bit different in movies. But, you're adding just that little touch, and they're like, I thought it's supposed to be like boom, 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 real bassy. And that's not always the case. But it's like why I like to hide it, because if I'm not looking at it, I can just enjoy it. You can still position them, so it sounds good in the room and the environment that you're trying to do. Now, and some people might disagree, and we'd love to hear that in the comments of why it should be up front,
There's something to it. Like my hi-fi system's behind me right now. And, when I'm listening to it, I face it. But
no, you do?
I do, yeah. Well, like when I'm critically listening to it, I should say. But when I'm just when I'm working, like looking at the computer here, it's playing behind me, and I swear the bass is better. It's just more separated and clean, and I always think of it because you always say that. But yeah, I do think there's something to it. I don't know what it is.
Total theory. There's no facts behind this. It's just from experience of when you're looking at something, and like it would be like if you had 3 pairs of speakers in front of you, right? And you turned on the small one and didn't tell the person which one was playing. They would always assume it's the biggest one. But then if you did if you kind of did the opposite, you started with the biggest one, and maybe they assume it's, it's a mind game. It's really, it's a visual mind game where you're putting something in your head, and maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But just from doing it, that's just kind of what I see.
Yeah. No, I've experienced it.
And 2,000 watts continuous. How do you even do that?
Well, it's Class D. I mean, you got the monoblock amps going. It's a ton of power, and that's all just to make it extremely, extremely clean and very snappy. Which, I mean, you're getting more like, you're not necessarily getting those snappy little peaks in the transients, but bass is really hard to keep clean. It takes a lot of power to keep it clean at loud volumes, and if it's not clean, it just doesn't hit right.
Well, with a 5,000 watt peak, this probably hits pretty right.
Yeah, well, that's all that room. So like, it'll just never, even if you're blasting it and something really dynamic and quick happens, like it'll stay very clean and translate that very well.
Wow. Okay. So this is snappiness. You always talk about that.
Yeah, because I do it. I'll listen to like some wall sound, like jam band kind of thing, and that'll like shut your amp off. But for a lot of music that is kind of made to kind of have some punch, where like if you were to like lay it out in a waveform, you can really see the drum transients, and it's kind of quieter in a sense. It's only using a few watts. I mean, this is more like the actual amp to speakers thing, but like the extreme wattage, going into the hundreds and stuff. I mean, that's for all your dynamics and your peaks. That's like having this the A21 Plus, having all that extra power.
Sound.
It's not necessarily, the Halo A21 Plus. It's not necessarily like louder. It's just like, the drums are snappier, like all the little micro dynamics and stuff. So, but in this case, a little different. It's really about keeping the bass clean, I feel like, right?
And you have this driver, right? Do you know how much the motor weighs on the driver?
No, I don't.
Do you want to take a guess? We always throw in a little trivia game for Tom to try to guess on the show.
I want to say 30 pounds.
You're a little on it. It's 38.4 pound toroidal ferrite magnet motor assembly. See, I had to look at that because I'm not remembering all those words. But I mean, that's a heavy driver.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they're 15-inch. I don't think we said that. They're 15-inch drivers on the 5,000 series compared to like, and I think in this one, we want to compare it to the 16-inch that it's kind of in theory replacing is the gist that I got. But you also have their flagship, which is a 17. But it trickles down. This is a 15, and that's big.
Yeah, no, I mean 15. I feel like 15-inch woofers are like, it's like the standard like big woofer. I think you're getting actually like pretty. You're having a lot more headroom in that sense with the 17s. I mean, anything above 15 is like big,
right?
Drive wise.
Like that's and they make them compact. I mean, now if you get the one, and that's one of the differences in maybe getting the one with the ports and not getting the ports, is size. Like the subwoofer is going to be bigger.
Dude, that's the thing with those ported subs; they are massive.
Right,
they're
so
very big.
If you need a little less, now of course it's going up. Like it's not like the ports aren't on the side; they're underneath, so it's raising it up and is but. Without the ports, you do get a little smaller size if like space is a constraint. You have a constraint thing going on, and your 15-inch sub needs to fit in something. And of course, they have smaller models if you're looking to just do something compact, like the Micro 3000s, like the one everybody kind of hits to. But to do a 15 with all the new technology and the new build, and what's the price on this?
It is $2,000 for the sealed and $2,600 for the ported.
And a lot of that, I think the difference in a lot of that is just size. Like if you're shipping stuff, you have just more materials.
Oh yeah.
Right. But at $2,000 for the sealed, the Micro 3000 is like what, $900? I mean, so I don't know, man. It's not, they really, I think, hit a price point here at under at $2,000, that is kind of hard to compete with.
Especially, I mean, you're getting like all their flagship technology. Like it's just not quite the size and the level of the SB17, but the SB5000. I mean, you're right there.
And then talking about the power supply, so you could get a separate, let's talk about our experience with this. So we're in Ohio. We're at our friend John's house in Ohio. He has, and I don't know if I've shown this picture before, but he had 2 speakers for his fronts, and he used the 16s, the previous model, as his bass drivers on the front 2 speakers.
Yeah.
And he topped it off with Cornwalls as his mid and his high range. So he made a speaker, and the Cornwalls just kind of sat right on top, right?
Yeah, they sat on top. They had the isoacoustic stands, and they were just like in the corner, like these big stacks. But it was like Klipsch Heritage and SVS. It was like the craziest combo ever.
But he's very into controlling the nuances in everything. Like everything has to be really controlled, the DSPs and the room correction and all that stuff. And
he was blasting it. Like he really, was playing music at a level where, like, I mean, he went through great lengths to keep things clean.
Oh, he was playing it really loud.
Yeah.
But it was clean.
That's the challenge. Yeah. Yeah. That was his whole thing, is like, can I get this at like concert level and have no distortion?
And he actually put in specific, what did he put in specific breaker for this, and ran a special, like a direct power supply, just to make sure the subs had the correct voltage.
Yeah, he had to do multiple stuff to his house. I don't know that he had to, like, he sealed the house, and
it looks like he had extension cords coming up from the basement, just going to these
power line. Was that the
yeah? I mean, not to the house, but to the subs. They were powered, by themselves. To keep it
Something
clean.
Crazy. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
But what they did, it's almost like they were like, man, John, you really did too much here. You didn't have to go through all that. Well, why don't we just put that in the subwoofer?
Yeah.
Right? So it's like putting a power conditioner like into the subwoofer. It time aligns the AC voltage to the current, filtering and stabilizing incoming voltage to optimize signal quality, right? So that's the official what it does.
Yeah, that's actually that makes a big difference.
I mean, that was a big deal to him that he wanted to do that because of what it would do to the sound. And let me tell you, it was wild.
Oh yeah, it was an awesome. It was a great system. It was a fun night.
How long did we listen to that system?
We were supposed to be there for like 2 hours, and we were there for not even like 45 minutes, and we were there for like 6 hours.
Yeah, it was late into the night. The person that brought us there was like, we got to go. I got to get up in the morning or whatever. And I'm like, okay, I guess. But like, it was cool because, he had a big whiskey collection.
Yeah.
And, I'm a whiskey guy. So I'm just like dying in this, just looking at this collection. And I'm like, I just want to try everything, but you can't do that. And, we're talking, I think I had the Four Roses that was like 15 years old. And then he had all the Blantons from like all the different countries, the Japanese Blantons, that you can't get in the U.S. So like it was, if there was a time to try whiskey, it was then. So we were just going. It's a good thing we weren't just there for 45 minutes, because it would have been a little bit too much at one time.
Yeah, I mean, it was spaced out, but I wasn't even into and I'm really not into whiskey, and that was kind of the whole thing. We walked in, it was like, first we gotta have whiskey, and I was like, it's not really my thing, and he kind of got me into it to where, because usually I just like, it does not go down well, but I was just serving myself whiskey after that. He was kind of the whiskey wizard.
And you had a piece of chocolate. You hate chocolate.
Well, he was like, it helps, and I was like, I'll try it, but I don't think this is going to go well, because I don't like whiskey and I don't like chocolate either, and it wasn't good.
But you didn't have the cheese.
I didn't have the cheese.
You also hate cheese.
Yeah. I know, but I don't. That's it. That's the short list. But it was like, here's whiskey. I got a cheese board, and this chocolate will help with the whiskey. And I'm like, this isn't going well.
It was, but the music, I'm telling you.
Oh my God. No, I did have a great time. Like, I don't want to say it, like, I was like, at that moment, I was like, how do I tell him? But the whiskey was good, and the system was incredible. I stole a bunch of demo tracks from him that night.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, yeah, he played a lot of good stuff because that's all he's basically, with just all the like tuning everything, and he was constantly running that, and that's kind of how he approached the hobby. It was very interesting.
That it was wild, but it really showed me what you can do with two like flagship type subwoofers in your
Mm-hmm.
system. An unconventional way of doing it. Like I never saw that before,
Mm-hmm.
where you
Mm-hmm.
just use them as your bass driver, your front two speakers.
Yeah, yeah, he had crossovers, so those Cornwalls, which can put out a ton of bass, they really weren't. They were just handling the mid range and the highs.
And it was all thanks to all the DSP stuff he was doing and
Mm-hmm.
all that. And I'm not the expert on that. You're probably a little more.
A little bit, like there's a lot that goes into where you place a sub,
Hmm.
and a lot of people, they just want to put it in a certain place in the system, but it like doesn't necessarily work the best in that room there. I've done the trick where like you put the sub in the middle and you crawl around the edges of your room, and I have like these vaulted ceilings, so I'm like,
Wait, you crawl around, you just don't walk around?
the ceilings are like low, so I have to
Okay.
like crawl, you know what I mean, if I'm going to get it
Oh,
against the
okay.
wall. Because they come down, they're vaulted. It's not ideal, but just an office. But yeah, no, I'll go around and try to find the good spot. It is definitely a pain. Now right now I don't have an SVS, and I don't have that app. If I did, it'd be a lot easier. Like that, being able to sit in your listening position and you have a full EQ. And that's the main thing I would use. Like the EQ, the crossover, volume. You can do phase and stuff like that. But
Yeah, here's
it's
the,
very
here's the
handy.
full list of everything the app does. Uh, the DSP functions, including volume, a 6-band parametric equalizer, a low pass filter, phase polarity, room gain, port tuning, system settings, custom presets, and coming soon, the auto room EQ, which will just
Mm,
take care of it for you.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder how that's going to be. Are they going to have like a mic that builds in, or just use the mic in the?
You would probably use the mic in your phone.
Yeah, I've used an app that did that once, and it didn't work out well. It really thinned everything out, but it could have just been the app.
When
Like I
when they do it, it'll work out well.
Yeah, it was a weird thing. I did like, it was a convolution app that made a curve, and I imported it into Rune, and it was terrible. But this will be a lot better, I'm sure. It'd be like all your what are they? No, it's blanking on. What are the home theater Dirac? It'd be
Direct.
like
Well,
that.
that's what John used. John
Yeah,
used Direct.
everybody
I
loves
think
that.
he was a big Direct guy.
Mm-hmm.
I go back and forth on my experience with Direct because I'm more of the guy that wants to just like put it in and hit like go and it's done.
Mm,
And Direct, like, and I get it because if you're buying something new and you want to have a fun setup experience, that takes a lot of time.
mm-hmm.
But I kind of go through so much different gear, right? That
Mm-hmm.
like I don't have the time to always sit down there and put the mic in 20 different places.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of just want to be like one and done. So the auto feature on this would be what I would do,
Yeah.
but not probably what everybody else is going to do. Maybe they may want to get that experience, and that is an experience, like tuning your system. I mean, he was tuning his system
Mm-hmm.
while we were listening to it.
Yeah, it like wasn't done.
It's just
Yeah.
constant. It's a constant thing.
Mm-hmm.
He had the EQ up on his phone and the analyzer on his phone, and he was like just changing stuff for each song, like just make and that was what he was into.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people are like that. I'd love to know what everybody watching this thinks. Put it in the comments what you guys do with, like, do you like to play around with stuff or do you just like to set it and forget it? So very exciting. I can't wait to like really give these a go and try them out. We're gonna get to do that soon. So we're gonna go up. We're gonna go up to one of our buddies at SVS's his house and get to kind of listen to all this. So we're
Yeah.
kind of excited for that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Down the street for you, but a little away for me. And we'll just have some fun listening to to everything because their whole system. And we just did a SVS upgrade to a SVS system about a month ago. We put two subs in. I think they were maybe the 2000s if I'm not mistaken.
I can look it up.
And he had a nice I think it was an 11 or 13 channel system, and he was upgrading his SVS subs to like a higher model. And you know, it was really nice. He was super happy with it. But like the one thing, you know, he did ask, he said, what would you change in this system? Right. And the thing for me is that he had bookshelves as his front speakers. And to me, like, you know, if your space is a requirement, that's fine. But I do think if you're like, what do I upgrade next? He's like, do I get new amps? What do I do? I'm like, dude, put towers in the front.
Yeah, it really starts with the towers.
You know, and then you can cycle those speakers around. So those bookshelves can then go on the sides. Your sides can then go in the rears, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it starts like the towers and the subs in that kind of system is kind of number one. You know, but SVS has solutions for like the Atmos and everything.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to try those out. So if you guys, you know, are looking for a subwoofer, you want to see if they're right, give us a call. We'll help you out with that. The other thing, you shared your hi-fi system on our last episode.
I know. Mine will change, but it hasn't since the last one.
Well, it was 2 days ago.
True.
So, or
It'll
a couple
change
days.
pretty regularly. I'm not going to lie. I feel like 2 days is a long time for me to have the same system.
So I was saying how in my system, because my system changes all the time as well, that I put something in my system that I never actually used in my house before.
Okay.
And I've used this several times, and I've been using this one for years. I've done videos on this, but I recently put in, and the reason, you know, I put this in, I got a bunch of different amps sitting around. I switch them out, you know, depending on what we're doing. And the kids wanted to watch a movie with their friends, and they're like, hey, can you throw a nice stereo in there so I can get, you know, good movie sound? And it's a 2-channel system. I have the Wharfdale Linton set up and, you know, going from the TV. So I needed HDMI. So I hooked up the Yamaha RN2000.
Oh yeah, you got that. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm kind of testing that out right now again, just in my house. And I was actually super impressed, but even more so when I turned it on the first time, all the kids that like were over were like, wow.
Yeah.
And you know, they're not, you know, my son hears this stuff all the time, right? But these kids have never heard a hi-fi system.
Yeah. They're just, dude, like the first time you just actually like, because there's a lot, there's tons of kids that just aren't really aware. And like the first time you hear it, it's like, whoa.
Yeah, it doesn't have to come from all around you. It doesn't have to be a surround system. Like when you crank up a 2-channel on a movie, like these kids went crazy. You'd have thought they never heard anything like this before. It was like they were at the movies. You know, set up quick. I threw it up there. It's heavy. Took it out of the box. Did all that fun stuff. You know, and it was nice. It was sitting up on the counter there, looking all good. It really, the silver looks, I got the silver one, so the silver looks amazing.
Yeah, it looks gorgeous.
Got the little meters and easy hookup. Put the HDMI in, plug the speakers in, I'm done. But I've been really impressed by this. So we'll probably do a video on this soon just to kind of refresh everybody on this because it's not, you know, it's been out for about 2 years. But I actually went to the Yamaha room at Expona about 2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah, they always have a good room.
And we filmed there for Expona. I don't know when that video is coming out, but we kind of did a profile video in that room. But the cool thing that they did was all the tops of all the amps were all open. And they had an acrylic top on everything. Like my favorite thing in the world.
Yeah. You're like, how do I get these from my store?
Oh, yeah. I was thinking about that. I'm like, can I get one of these?
Yeah.
Right. And so they had the RN2000 in like a separate spot with a bunch of guitars because, you know, they make the instruments, they make the sound you play it on, they make the stuff you record on. Like they take you all the way through the journey from the artist to the end user listener. And so they're kind of, you know, they make that statement there, but then on the side they had the 1200, the 2200, the 3200, and next to that they actually had the 5000 series with the acrylic tops, which was so cool to see, like the Yamaha flagship series, how it was built on the inside. But it was really to attest to the build quality that trickles down from those into the 1200, the 2200, the 3200, and then the 2000. being the focus piece. Because let's face it, like you can do a lot with the 2000. 2000, all it is a 1200, but they added in network streaming, HDMI, and there's some other features in that the 1200 doesn't have, but it's the same sound. Like the amp and everything is built the same. And I mean, it was cool.
As far as, I mean, I guess it is a receiver, but the DACs, the digital inputs are I would say, top tier as far as a built-in one. That's that's always been a big plus with the Yamaha. It's just the actual components in it. It is you're not so pressured to upgrade later down the line, which is always fun to do, but they do a really good job with all that stuff. At the time, it was all really state of the art. I guess it's now might be a 9038 Saber chip, and now there's 9039s, but they really do that stuff very, very well. And the amp, the 2000 is, and I've heard it a ton. Like we've had it demo rooms and all that stuff, but that's one piece that whenever I sell to a customer, they always really freak out about it. So it's a good piece.
Sounds good on a lot of speakers. It's one of those amps that and Yamaha is a little more maybe forward sounding and clean and detailed. Like it has a sound profile to it. It's
different people have described it to me in totally different ways.
Really?
It's kind of got an interesting.
Give me some examples.
People have called it, I mean, to me, it really just kind of sounds like how they describe it, natural. And I do that. That's kind of what I go for myself. Always very pleasing. But I mean, people have called it hollow, but then they talk about how crazy the sound stage is. And then you describe it as forward, but I've never heard anybody else describe it forward at all.
Really?
Yeah.
See, isn't that interesting how those words just mean different things to different people?
Yeah. And this, I don't like using this word because it sounds so negative, but it kind of has just slightly, and I even noticed this in the the stuff from the 70s. It is kind of a more just stale sound, and I know that sounds terrible.
That does sound terrible.
I know. But let me explain.
Okay.
The bass is really good. I've always been a big fan of the bass, and it is that clear, but it's got a really full mid range, kind of like Audiolab. I do think of it as a more it's similar to Audiolab, but there is a little bit more sweetness in the mid-range. Does that make sense? Whereas Audiolab's going for full on accuracy. You're losing a little accuracy with the Yamaha. Maybe I shouldn't be comparing it like this, but it is a very hard to pin down sound to me. But honestly, it's just kind of the sound that goes in is the sound that goes out. But they do a few things to sweeten up the sound a little.
I feel like your word stale just means natural.
Yeah,
they don't do anything to change the sound. So if they don't do anything to the sound when it goes in, it just comes out kind of the same. To me, that's the word natural. To you, maybe that's the word stale because they don't do any, they don't put any ingredients into it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's plain.
And I'm, from the pro world, I like that. And I really kind of got this idea from listening to the 70s stuff. So kind of going into the vintage stuff randomly. The first thing I ever had in my house was the
Sansui.
No, it was actually the Sansui. Yeah, it was that was an SS 800, but then I had a 600. But is it the SA 600? Those are the integrated amps.
Yeah,
as opposed to the RAs.
They had a 600. They had a 620, a 64. It depends on the year.
I had a 600, and I really, the Pioneers were always really bright to me. People love them because they had that more clarity than anything else back then. But they were always just kind of bright and in your face. And I really liked the Yamaha for just being not so much. And I always thought it had more modern bass. I thought it was way ahead of its time on low end.
That's interesting. And the cool thing about the Yamaha, one of the reasons I love it, it still looks vintage.
They haven't changed at all.
They haven't
and the feel it doesn't feel worse. Like the
No, you
knobs and
still got
buttons.
those knobs that go up and down for the
Mhm.
tone controls and everything like that. So they kept that, nostalgic heritage in their current products, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So we talked about the 9038 chip, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about Audiolab. And when you see us,
Oh,
yeah, and when
great
you see us
segue.
next, we will be talking about the newest addition to the Audiolab 9000 series. But you're just going to have to wait and find out. That would be the new DAC from Audiolab, the D9, which we'll be talking about on the next episode. But for today, hey, for Lenny and Tom and All Elite Audio, remember, if you want to get a system built by us, we would love to help you do that. Go to alleliteaudio.com, text and call us, and we will help you build your next hi-fi system. And it'll be great. It really will be. Right, Tom?
Yes. Yeah,
That's right.
absolutely.
All right. We will see you guys next time.